The unity stirred. Not with movement. With presence. A place that wasn't a place, just awareness coalescing around gravity, memory, and command. Light pulsed in slow spirals, weaving through impossible structures. Time here did not pass. It hummed. Folded in on itself like a heartbeat in reverse. And at the center of it all sat the unity, not a being, not truly. A convergence. A concept given shape only when observed. It resembled a humanoid form, featureless, cloaked in layers of light and dark intertwined. A void wrapped in a star's skin. And when it turned to acknowledge, when it chose to witness a new presence, it adopted a face, a mirror of whoever stood before it. But right now, it wore nothing. It was still. Watching. Watching Johnny Vanjik. Across realities. Across rewound timelines and diverging threads of history. Watching as the armillary obeyed not unity's will but his. The chamber, if one could call this unplace a chamber, stretched out into a starlit, dimensionless veil. Dozens of starborn stood in shadowed ranks behind the unity. They came from fractured pasts, failed futures, and broken presents. They had earned their place here by killing. By severing. By preserving the path. Each one bore a piece of an armillary. Each one had passed through the spiral by leaving Earth behind. And yet now they stood, silent, unmoving. Because something had changed. Something had broken the symmetry. The unity focused. And in the void between, it saw Earth not dead, not ruined, not extinguished like a failed wick. Alive. Restored. A green and blue world glowing with its own memory. A world with a name whispered across time, Gaia. A world it had already sacrificed in every timeline deliberately for the secrets hidden beneath its bones. And Johnny Vanjik had said no. Not with worship. Not with theory. Not with rebellion. He had asked. And the artifacts obeyed. That was impossible. The unity's shape twisted. Not out of anger, out of fear. He is not of the spiral, it said aloud, voice like the collapse of galaxies. Not of the pattern. Not of the unity. The starborn shifted uneasily, some casting their eyes to the void. One of them, a figure from Johnny's own timeline, spoke in a voice that carried the weight of long erased memories. He comes from outside. The unity regarded that. Time rippled. No. He comes from beneath. And that was worse. Because things from beyond could be contained. Mapped. Anticipated. But things from beneath the pattern below the spiral, they were part of something even the unity did not fully understand. Chaos. This cannot be allowed, the unity whispered. Its form frayed at the edges now, glitching slightly as thousands of outcomes spun around it. One timeline. One boy. One impossible variable. Johnny Vanjik had undone a closed loop. He had saved Earth. And worse, he had shown others they could. The Unity stood at the precipice of a first, not a victory, not a collapse, but a challenge. And it would answer. With the full fury of eternity. The Unity stilled. Not paused, paralyzed. There were no words for what it witnessed. Not in its tongue, nor in the coded math of its quantum knowing. Not even in the infinite, recursive hymn of the multiverse itself. But it understood the implication. Something had bled into its order. Something sovereign, chaotic, outside the cathedral of its designed existence. A foreign pattern. A rival rhythm. Something that did not echo back when called upon, not because it was silent, because it was unreachable. And now, it was visible. The Unity did what it had never done before. It looked outward, past the edge of what it thought was everything, extending its senses beyond the spiral, beyond the flow of timelines it considered acceptable or true. It braced itself for madness. Instead it found Lancaster County. Again. And again. And again. Across timelines, across storylines, across fractured realities so distinct and surreal they couldn't possibly be mapped. And yet, they repeated. Worlds where monsters walked as men. Timelines ruled by flesh-warping gods. Civilizations dictated by the whims of nightmares, skinwalkers, necromorphs, foundlings, killers cloaked in myth. Entire universes structured around chaos, corruption, and cruelty. And in every one of them, when the tipping point came, when the sky blackened, when the old powers rose, he was there. Sometimes older, sometimes scarred, sometimes broken, sometimes reborn, but always with that same look in his eyes, that same resolve. Johnny Vanjik. And the place he fought for? Lancaster. Not Earth. Not humanity writ large. Not the spiral, not unity, not order. But a town. A people. A county. An echo across dimensions, a constant tether woven not from celestial will, but from human stubbornness. How could this be? Unity struggled. Its form pulsed with uncertainty, ripples of glitch and light warping around it. For the first time, it knew something it had never encountered in all its eternity. A blind spot. This was not a divergent thread. This was a parallel construct. A second multiverse entirely separate. And he was the anchor. Johnny Vanjik had existed outside the Unity's domain this entire time. A mythological constant. A cosmic irregularity. The protector of timelines Unity never even knew were real. Not just a variable. A counterforce. This is not possible, the Unity whispered. But its voice faltered, because it was. Johnny had not only survived the Unity's design. He had come from beyond it. And now, he had entered its world. Which meant one thing. This was not Unity's multiverse anymore. It had become a shared space. And the Unity, the great, eternal architect of singularity, now stood on a battlefield it did not understand, against a boy who had never once lost. He the unity, the first observer, the architect of recursion, the final symmetry of mankind's destined apex, had no answer. For eons, the unity had reigned not through strength, not through dominance, but through inevitability. It did not win battles. It simply waited for all things to converge. Eventually, all truths bled into it. All stories. All outcomes. But this one is Johnny. He wasn't bleeding in. He was cutting out. He was rewriting the inevitability. And not with forbidden tech, or God-killing swords, or star-forged might. With a fucking .44 Magnum. With a rebel's heart and a hometown-sized soul. The unity had always assumed it was alone at the top. That whatever echoes danced in its blind corners were too unformed, too scattered to matter. But the moment it watched Johnny erase death from Earth, and call back an entire planetary species from silence, it knew. This was not a glitch, not a variable, not an anomaly. This was a second God. No, not God. Not like the unity. This was humanity weaponized. This was defiance as a universal principle. This was grief sharpened into power. This was Johnny Vanjik. The unity stared across the multiverse and did not see a war. It saw a reckoning. Because if Johnny had entered this realm, then others could follow. Other versions. Other Vanjikis. And each one would carry one rule above all else. No one touches Lancaster. There was no peace to make. No order to enforce. No higher unity to offer. There was only Johnny. And whatever he chose to burn down. To keep his ghosts at peace. The unity trembled not because it could be defeated, but because, for the first time ever, it didn't know what Johnny Vanjik would do next. The unity rises. Not like a man. Not like a god. Not like a thing with shape, name, or even motive. No, this is movement as declaration. Concept as wrath. Its form flickers. Time bends around it like a trembling servant. Light fails to reflect because there is no surface left. Only force. Immortal. The voice echoes across the multiverse like a commandment. A rebel. A thief of gods and a traitor to his species. Johnny Vanjik. The name has now been carved into the unity's design. No longer a curiosity. No longer a statistical deviation. Now a threat. A heresy. A virus in the blueprint of convergence. And what sickens the unity most is not what Johnny did, but how long ago he started doing it. This wasn't new. This was ancient. The Johnny who had died fighting the imposter and the false storyteller. He had led his own starborn rebellion. had warped the very concept of ascension. He had weaponized the Unity's own knights, forged them into his own multiversal infantry. And worse still, the Unity hadn't even noticed. Entire legions, thousands, millions of Starborn, gone. Sworn not to the Unity, but to a boy from a dead county on a forgotten earth. Enough. The Unity speaks again, this time not into the void, but into command. Across the stars, every Starborn across the Unity's dominion feels the call. They drop their explorations. They halt their meditations. They turn, in unison, like puppets yanked on ancient wires. You have wandered without purpose. You have forgotten the prime directive. You are mine. They fall back into formation. Millions of them. Then billions. Black figures, glowing masks, trailing energy like morning veils. Across realities, across systems, they shift, teleport, swarm. And at the center of it all, Earth. Lancaster. Johnny Vanjik's home. The Unity has made its decision. This reality is to be scrubbed, rewritten, not just as punishment, but as a warning to the other timelines. The planet will be drowned in Starborn. The fragments will be reclaimed. The armillary shattered. Johnny taken. The human race repurposed. This is no longer about control. It is about vengeance. Let it be known. This universe will be the first and last to ever defy the Unity. And if Johnny Vanjik wants war, he's going to get it. And beneath those rings, those impossible, radiant rings, Earth breathes again. It's not just the trees growing faster than science can explain. Not just the atmosphere healing, the tides stabilizing, the radiation vanishing like a dream gone cold. It's not just the physics being bent around an act of raw, unchained will. It's the sound. Children laughing. Radios buzzing back to life. Fireworks, goddamn fireworks launched from rooftops by people who still remember when roofs were just tombstones for the sky. There's a weird kind of energy here now. A humility. Because everyone remembers dying. They remember the sky going black, the vault doors failing, the slow suffocation of silence. They remember the betrayal, the abandonment, the hopelessness. And now they're here. Alive. Not by chance, but because one kid with too much grief and too little left to lose said no. Earth is barely standing. Its nations are paper thin. Its infrastructure's a mess, half digital, half dust. But its heart is beating again. And that heartbeat is heard in Lancaster. Of course it is. It's where the survivors come first. Where strangers help strangers without asking names. Where the old men in flannel dig trenches beside teenagers born in vaults. Where City Hall was rebuilt not with concrete, but with the collective ache of needing something permanent again. And everywhere those rings. The armillary. Always above. Always visible. A miracle too big to process. A warning too terrifying to ignore. The world isn't united. Hell, it's barely cooperative. But there's a thread now. Something old school. Something older than politics, tech, even war. Humanity. Defiance. That punk-ass fire in the gut that says, come take it. So while the people of Earth rebuild, somewhere far beyond, the sky is screaming. Something's coming. But Earth doesn't know that yet. Not just yet. For now. They breathe. And the world waits. But it's slow. Like chiseling ice off a forgotten statue, every state that returns is a negotiation with memory, sovereignty, and pain. Some states come back with pride. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas regions with old bones and older loyalties. Others are hesitant, unsure of what version of America they're even waking up to. Some parts of the West still function more like city-states or autonomous security zones, with old enclave remnants having left scars in the land and politics. New York debates if it even wants to be called New York anymore. Florida's flag is currently a rotating community vote, 3 different designs already tied in local polling. But people are trying. That's the point. They're trying to be states again. And tonight, on this night of uneasy joy, the stars are full of fireworks, real ones, not tracer rounds. Old anthems are sung from broken down courthouses. Diner radios hum patriotic covers warped through a century of silence. Vault kids, now teenagers, hear the stories of what states used to mean. Veterans, those lucky enough to be revived, stand beside farmers, engineers, former pre-war politicians, blinking up at the sky as though God finally picked up the phone again. On the National Mall, the Lincoln Memorial is half covered in scaffolding, but people gather anyway. The reflecting pool holds candles like floating prayers. No presidents speak tonight. There is no centralized command yet. But somewhere out there, Lancaster, most likely someone plays an old recording of the Declaration. And that's enough. And even in the stillness, even in the triumph, some people feel it. In their gut. Behind the cheers, beneath the music, past the hum of celebration. Something is watching. Not from the sky, but through it. And in a place outside of time, a dark hand marks the coordinates and prepares to strike. They don't announce themselves. There is no transmission, no diplomacy, no warning shot. The first ship appears over Beijing, slicing the smog with a shimmering distortion. Then one over Brasilia. Then Lagos. Then Toronto. Then Tehran. Then Tokyo. 13, almost poetically. One for every commonwealth that once existed under the old global American consolidation. And then more. They bloom into the sky like reversed thunderclouds, silent, glowing, incomprehensible. Not with the swagger of an invading fleet, but the inevitability of a law being enforced. People freeze. Cameras flash. Some cry alien. Some cry miracle. Then someone fires first. It's always like this. Maybe a terrified soldier in Budapest. Maybe an old warbot on some automated patrol in Salt Lake City. Maybe it doesn't matter. The second the first shot leaves a barrel, the starborn open fire. But it's not a barrage. Not missiles. Not lasers. What hits the earth are ribs. Thin lances of reality itself being peeled away. Entire city blocks wink out like someone snuffed a flame. Time inside those zones halts, people frozen mid-step, mid-sentence, mid-scream. Not dead. Not alive. Just gone. Every major capital with a ring overhead suffers an incursion. Washington, D.C., still under reconstruction, gets hit hardest. The Lincoln Memorial's scaffolding glows, bends, and then implodes into itself like it was built of ash. People scatter. Planes fall out of the sky as navigation systems fry under starborn interference. This is not a war. It is an erasure. And just as quickly as they come, the ships go still. Hovering. Watching. Like judges at the end of a courtroom trial, waiting for the defendant to understand just how guilty they are. And then, somewhere near Lancaster, just as he's sprinting toward a surviving comms tower to confirm the reports, Johnny stops. Eyes glowing. Heart pounding. He looks up. He knows. They came for him. And now the earth bleeds again. In the first 3 minutes, more starborn touched down on Earth than the entire global population had seen of them in centuries. Not in ones. Not in squads. But in waves. Their armor is seamless. Their weapons aren't even weapons, just nodes of shaped physics. Some of them walk. Others float inches above the ground like they refuse to touch Earth. They are clean. They are cold. They are not here to conquer. They are here to correct. But Earth was built by people who refuse correction. And now it remembers. All across the globe, the old military structures boot back up. Not just the United States, but what's left of old China's high command, India's eastern divisions, Brazil's orbital strike net. Dozens of anti-air systems rise up like sleeping gods. Pre-war nukes are armed. Not fired. Yet. Counterfire begins. An old European railgun array roars to life near the Alps. In old Siberia, an autonomous defense AI long forgotten locks onto targets in the upper atmosphere. A fusion reactive carrier in the Gulf opens its silos and launches a full payload toward the largest ship over Cairo. Old tech. Brutal. Crude. But real. And angry. You see. These aren't fresh soldiers in fancy suits. These are people who already died once. Many of them crawled out of vaults. But others, they woke up in trenches, in cities, on battlefields that had no name anymore. 1 minute they were bleeding in the dirt of 2077, next minute, their heart was beating again, the sky was blue, and Earth had been saved. And now this. There are farmers shooting from rooftops in Kansas. There are bunker-born engineers hijacking museum tanks in what used to be Berlin. And in Seoul, a choir of teenage conscripts raise repurposed war drones from the old underground networks. Humanity is not ready. But it is not weak. This is not the battle Earth wins clean. It's the battle where Earth screams. It fights tooth, claw, bullet, and bone. And for every starborn that tries to blink into a city, one more human dies buying time for 10 others to escape. And Johnny, he sees it from the sky now. Because the second those lances of erasure hit, the artifacts began glowing again. They ripped him from Lancaster, shot him into orbit, and now he floats alone watching Earth burn for the second time in his life. And this time, there's no exodus, no vaults, no grab jumps. This is Earth's last stand. And she's going down swinging. The skies scream. Above every continent, from launch silos hidden in mountains to ancient vertical hangars sunk deep beneath cities, ships rise. Not the sleek, elegant cruisers of the UC. Not the variable stealth rigs of Freestar. No, these are Earth's ships. Worn, scorched, unlabeled. Built for war, not diplomacy. Some have the stars and stripes. Others bear the hammer of old Eurasian blocks. A few are painted in the matte gray of the lost African space programs, symbols reawakened after centuries asleep. They launch not as fleets, but as a storm. Thousands of them. Thousands. The orbital graveyard that once orbited Earth. Those ruined evacuation ships. The dead stations. They begin to shudder and twitch. As the armillary pulses again, pulling fragments of metal, old AI cores, living memory etched into steel, and reawakens what was never meant to fly again. Ships piloted by ghosts. Ships remembering their purpose. The Earth-born armada. They slam into the starborn fleet like fire meeting paper. Some are ripped apart instantly. But others hold. In the distance, the remains of Earth's original Lagrange point defense satellites, long dead, spark to life, catching the sun's reflection in a way that looks like they're blinking. Within minutes, hundreds of starborn craft are burning. But Earth's ships are burning too. This is not strategy. This is not conquest. This is vengeance from a people who refuse to go extinct twice. And Johnny, floating just above the clouds, he sees it. Ships with no names. Ships crewed by resurrected rage. One freighter blasts a starborn corvette apart with actual kinetic tungsten rods. Another rams straight into a capital vessel, rupturing its core as it laps through open comms. And across the commnet, a voice breaks through. We were told to run, once. Now we know better. If Earth is to die again, it dies with her teeth in their throats. Johnny's eyes glow. The artifacts begin to spin. He feels every soul screaming in orbit and on the ground. And he says, let's make them bleed. Because Earth isn't just alive. Earth is angry. Johnny lands hard, his boots thudding against the cracked concrete of the ancient relay station, its tower jutting skyward like a finger raised in defiance to the void. The winds howl. The planet groans. In the distance, the battle for Earth's orbit rages on, ships spiraling and burning like falling stars. His fingers move fast across the rust-worn controls, typing in codes that haven't been used in centuries. But the artifacts inside the armillary still thrum behind his ribs, silent, spinning, listening. They remember. They make the system work. Static fills the screen. Then a voice flickering. This is UC Compoint Lambda 7. New Atlantis receiving. Signal degraded. Identify. Johnny leans in. His voice is steady, tired but burning. This is Johnny Vanjik, Earthborn. Earth is under siege. Starborn forces are swarming orbit, ground installations, everything. I need firepower, now. Silence. Then scrambling, multiple voices overlapping on the feed. The face of a Vanguard lieutenant appears in a haze of static and blood-red backlight. We saw your transmission. Routing all nearby UC and Allied forces. Closest active squad is at DMO's Star Yard, Mars orbit. ETA, 37 minutes if they burn hard. Johnny slams a fist into the terminal. We don't have 37 goddamn minutes. The lieutenant just nods grimly. Understood. We'll relay updates. Hold out. New Atlantis is mobilizing. I repeat, Earth will not fall. The transmission cuts, replaced by emergency routing protocols as the station begins sending out distress signals across dozens of old orbital nets. Johnny steps back from the console, breath fogging in the cold. The world shakes again as a starborn weapon detonates somewhere far off, so bright the entire sky flashes white-blue. And he looks up. Eyes glowing. Hands shaking. The earth screaming in his bones. You'll get here too late, he mutters. So I'll just have to slow them down. The artifacts spin faster. The light bends around him. And Johnny Vanjik vanishes, transmatting to the nearest starborn incursion site with nothing but a .44 Magnum and a world to defend. Johnny hits the ground like a meteor, knees cracking stone, boots skidding in torn dirt and ash. The battlefield before him is chaos incarnate. A street once lined with flags and people celebrating their rebirth is now an open graveyard. Burning ships. Scattered debris. The corpses of men who had only just remembered how to live. but the second Johnny rises, shoulders square, eyes aglow, .44 Magnum in hand, everything stops. The starborn nearest him turn, sensing the shift. They move like ghosts, flowing through the wreckage, blades of light and reality bending, rifles aimed for his chest. They think he's one of them. They think wrong. Crack. The first shot ruptures the air like thunder from God. One starborn's chest blossoms into Rog, or no multiversal fade, no elegant vanishing act. Just death. The real kind. The kind Earth knows all too well. Two more rush. Johnny moves through them like a force of nature. He doesn't dodge, he walks. One swings a curved energy blade, but it snaps against Johnny's shoulder, as if time itself refuses to let him bleed again. He drives his fist into the starborn's gut, and something shatters, not armor, not bone, but maybe the will to continue existing. Another steps forward, chanting in a dialect older than Earth's first flag. You are not meant to be here, Vanjik. You break the shape of things. Good, Johnny growls, grabbing the creature by the throat. I came to unmake the shape. He slams the starborn's head into the pavement. Once. Twice. A third time for every century Earth spent forgotten. Then it's just stillness. Dozens of starborn stand frozen in the smoke. Weapons raised but unmoving. For the first time in their existence, they don't know what they're looking at. The creature before them is not like the rest. He doesn't bend space-time. He doesn't glow with unity's grace. He burns. With memory. With rage. With the soul of a species that was never meant to be erased. I'm not the future, he whispers, cocking the magnum. I'm what comes back to haunt it. And then the battlefield screams once more. Johnny moves like thunder given human shape. Every round from the magnum tears through not just armor, not just flesh, but some fundamental tether that binds the starborn to their false divinity. They don't vanish in grace, they fall, hard, screaming, clawing at ruptured air as if the very atmosphere of Earth has turned against them. And maybe it has. Because something is happening now. The armillary, still orbiting the planet in its new, Saturn-like shell, hums in tandem with Johnny's movements. It pulses with his heartbeat. And with every starborn that dies screaming on Earth's surface, those golden bands shimmer, twist, and shift like they're responding to vengeance itself. Across the globe, resistance holds. Tank divisions that hadn't seen combat since the Third World War now roll out of rusted bunkers fully manned. Fighter jets long thought obsolete soar like angels in formation. Cannons sing their old songs of fire and steel. It's brutal. It's visceral. It's human. And the starborn, for all their transcendence, aren't ready for that kind of war. Not here. Not now. Johnny reloads in a blur, vaulting over wreckage and skidding into the next blast zone. His code whips behind him, blood-smeared and scorched but still bearing the vault insignia 717, and on his chest, a hand-sewn patch with one word, Lancaster. A small squad of Starborn attempt a pincer move from behind a fallen overpass. They shimmer in and out of view, trying to phase through reality to get the drop. But Johnny doesn't need to see them. He feels them. "Your tricks worked on sheep," he says, turning mid-spin. "But I was born in a cage." The magnum erupts again. One by one, they fall. He doesn't stop. He won't stop. All over the world, people begin to chant. Not through orders. Not through broadcasts. But through instinct. A name. The name they've seen rip Starborn in half on live feeds. The name that's gone viral in 10,000 languages. The name that has no faction, no flag, no fleet, but all the fire. Vanjik. 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 And as Johnny rounds the next hill, a massive Starborn war engine crests the skyline, an obsidian juggernaut carried on 6 shimmering gravity tethers. It looks like it was ripped from another universe entirely. Johnny just exhales, grips the magnum tighter. "All right. Let's dance, you son of a bitch." The battle's far from over. But now Earth fights back with purpose. With memory. With Vanjik. Johnny's boots hit the cracked pavement with the weight of a decade's worth of rage and history behind every step. Smoke rises around him, black ribbons trailing from the ruins of Starborn tech and shattered Earth artillery, twisted and mangled in a dance older than time. The Starborn before him, glowing with layered energy from across dimensions, floats just above the ground like some ancient seraph. Its posture serene, detached, calculating. Johnny doesn't even blink. His voice is calm, but the weight of every lost world hangs on it like steel chains forged in fire. "You see, Starborn, for all your elegance, for all your power, for all your ability to twist time, to transcend the very laws of physics, you fail to understand one thing." He pauses. Flicks ash off the barrel of the magnum. The cylinder still glows from its last few shots. Power doesn't mean you understand war. Behind him, distant screams mix with thunder. A shell screams overhead. Someone's firing a restored Sherman tank down an interstate. Power doesn't mean you understand pain. Or grief. Or the weight of putting a bullet between two eyes because you have to, not because your damn equations told you to. The Starborn hovers still, head slightly tilted. Confused. This kind of resistance, it doesn't compute. You think warfare is about tech? About shields? About perfect coordination? Johnny steps closer, gun lowered, eyes burning like coals from Earth's molten core. "We're shooting you down with rifles 100 years old. Pistols my great-grandpa buried in a basement in 1955. Shotguns that were antiques before we even hit orbit." He laughs, not out of joy, but pure exhaustion. You don't understand warfare. You understand conquest. Bombardment. Submission. Not fighting. Not chaos. Not loss. He looks up. The armillary rings shimmer faintly above the clouds. And I ain't saying we're winning. But we're not losing, either. A low rumble shakes the sky's gravity drive spooling. Johnny doesn't have to look to know what's coming. Because in 10 minutes, UC will be here. Then House VA Ruin. Then Freestar. You made yourself too damn loud, Starborn. And the whole system heard it. The Starborn begins to raise its hand, but Johnny's already got the gun pointed. They haven't forgotten what you did to New Atlantis. To Constellation. And even if Earth isn't part of the UC, he presses forward. The armillary's in Seoul. You've made your move. Now we're making ours. And with a crack of thunder not born of clouds, the Magnum fires again. The moment the shot leaves the barrel, the air around Johnny doesn't just tremble, it warps. The Magnum's echo blends into a deep harmonic pulse that vibrates through the clouds, through the earth, through space. And then, the impossible happens. The rings of the armillary above the earth flare, each segment catching starlight and bending it inward. The fragments shift synchronized, precise, alive. From orbit, they look like a machine dreaming in real time. On the ground, you can feel time itself crackle in your bones. Johnny doesn't even flinch. He raises his free hand to the sky, his fingers flexed like a conductor's over a symphony of stars. 10 minutes, right, he says aloud, not to anyone near him but to the Starborn's timeline itself. Let's try 10 seconds instead. The rings ignite in sequence. 1, 2, 3. Each pulse sent rippling outward across the solar system, each ring converting time from a strict master into a tool, his tool. Fast-forwarding soul itself, not in history, not in memory, but in velocity. Mars is no longer 60 million miles away. The ships aren't arriving. They're already here. Dozens of UC Vanguard frigates pop into orbit like gods arriving late to the funeral. From the skies above Earth, the clouds burn silver as warships descend like descending meteors, clean, tactical, aggressive. UC forces in exo-frames deploy across Earth's upper hemisphere. The air crackles with drop pod after drop pod. Troopers pour out, guns glowing with charged rounds, some bearing marks of long-forgotten Terran divisions. And Johnny just stands there, in front of the broken Starborn, in front of Earth, in front of Soul. That's the thing about the armillary, Starborn. You look at it like a key to ascension. I see it for what it really is. He lowers the Magnum again. Points it not at the enemy but at the stars. It's a goddamn alarm clock. And I just woke up the whole damn system. The Starborn stagger back not from the attack, but from fear. Real fear. Because they've never been caught off guard like this. Never been beaten at time. And now, they're outnumbered. Outgunned. And worst of all, outclassed. Johnny's voice cuts through the chaos like thunder splitting a quiet sky. He steps forward across scorched earth, boots crunching over broken glass and bloodied stone, past the twitching corpses of Starborn, their helmets shattered, their supposed immortality leaking red and steaming in the wind. Above him, the armillary rings twist once, violently, a single flash of defiance in the sky, as if even they understood the gravity of what was said. He stops at the center of the battlefield, arms wide, blood running down his jaw, hair matted, eyes burning with that impossible fire the Starborn still can't explain. Go on then, he spits into the heavens. You call it unity. You kneel. You worship. You obey. You think it's evolution? Nah. It's just another coward with a control complex. He raises the magnum skyward and fires. The shot doesn't aim at anything, not physically but in the multiversal noise, it hits. Reality stutters. Skies flicker like bad film. Time skips. Everyone, friend, foe, even machine feels it. The summon. And then Johnny screams, voice like gravel wrapped in thunder. Now tell your goddamn god to come out here and fight me like a man. Silence. Utter, absolute silence. The surviving Starborn don't move. The UC soldiers behind Johnny are frozen in awe. Even the air itself holds its breath. And then, across the sky above Earth, reality tears. Not a portal. Not a transmat. Not a grab jump. A wound. Black and white and gold spiral together, tearing through stars like thread, and from within it comes the voice, not sound, but presence. A voice without shape, without gender, ancient and infinite and afraid. You were not meant to be. And Johnny smiles. Bloody. Bruised. Undying. Yeah, well. I was born on a planet that wasn't meant to survive. We're funny like that. He cocks the hammer of his magnum. And waits. The sky ripples. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. The fabric of reality itself bends, like a sheet of metal warping under unbearable pressure. The rift still pulses high above Earth, bleeding starlight and unknowable math, and yet it hesitates. A god, if it can be called such, has been challenged. Dared. Johnny Vanjik steps forward, boots cracking old earth beneath him like ash, blood, and radiation mixing with rebirth. The armillary pulses behind him like a heartbeat, casting a glow so vast it refracts off the crumbled skyscrapers of old Lancaster. And though he speaks alone, he is not alone. His voice hits like ordnance. You've seen everything by now, haven't you? I know you have. You watch. That's all you ever do. Billions of years. Trillions of timelines. And all you ever do is watch. He spits into the ground. Strike me down? Please. Let's entertain it. You just open the gates for every other Vanjik across real time. And I'm not talking about your sanitized loop of Unity-tested timelines. I'm talking VCSN. I'm talking about the network. You know what it is. You're afraid to say it? His hands are trembling, but not from fear. From focus. From the uncontainable resonance of the multiverse bleeding through one man's soul. At any moment, I could call one of them here. I could call all of them. Vampires, foundlings, gods, broken angels. Every version of me that was carved in myth and war, forged in flame or in frost. You think this is a war you can win? He pauses. Looks up at the massive, seething form of the Unity, shapeless, expressionless, its face flickering like a broken mirror trying to reflect him. But I won't. I won't summon them. Not because I can't. Because I don't need to. He raises his hand. The armillary fragments orbited like planets to a sun. They shimmer with fire, steel, and history. Because Earth can stand on its own. Because we've got shovels and nukes and swords and faith. Because humanity is the only thing in all the multiverse that never needed your permission. And you, Unity, you're nothing but a fraction. A broken scrap of an idea that thinks it runs the show. The light flares. Somewhere deep in the multiversal script, something breaks. Some story thread the Unity forgot to control, unravels. And Johnny, eyes burning like collapsed stars, growls one final sentence. I am the Vanjik. You're not the main character here. I am. And this is my goddamn show now. The sky doesn't answer. It retreats. Johnny Vanjik stands at the epicenter of an Earth reborn. Streets once scorched now grow wildflowers through cracked pavement. Vaults open like tombs turn sanctuaries, and the sky overhead glimmers with a fractured aurora, light breaking through what was once a cage of fate. He breathes. Not heavy. Not desperate. Just deliberate. And then he speaks not to the Unity directly, but to the very space it's occupying. To the presence behind all things. The parasite masquerading as progression. The light told with cosmic certainty. You've spent so much time focused on death. So much effort making suffering look like growth. You've had your little narratives. Humanity must evolve. Earth must be shed like old skin. You let every horror touch our soil. Not because it was necessary, but because you couldn't imagine we'd ever want to stay. His voice rises like an anthem. Please. Kindly. Piss off. There's no wind. But the world reacts anyway. Leaves shift. Armillary shards pulse. Satellites blink as if in silent agreement. I'm tired. Tired of every story on this planet being soaked in tragedy. Tired of watching children dig through the ashes of a world they never broke. Tired of hearing your excuses about progress while every step forward came at the price of another soul you were willing to lose. He takes a step forward, not toward the unity, but away from it. This ends now. The sky doesn't break but it quiets. You let everything bad happen to us because you needed a reason. A reason to push us into space. To say Earth was a coffin. To justify why you needed us gone. But Earth was never the problem. You were. Your obsession with evolution, with cleansing, with your goddamn idea of perfection. He opens his palm. And with it, the artifacts rise. Every fragment of the armillary now orbiting Earth glows brighter, no longer in subservience, but in defiance. You don't get to kill my planet anymore. The unity flickers. Dimly. Briefly. As if the very structure of its form can't handle being told no. I was born in a world already on fire. I saw my people die. I saw the vaults empty and rot. And I was still ready to save you. But you can't kill Earth to make a point anymore. Johnny closes his fist. The fragments of the armillary respond. A low hum spreads through the atmosphere like thunder beneath the sea. Space warps not in surrender, not in chaos but in balance. Something no one, not even the unity, expected. So go. Crawl back to whatever corner of the multiverse gave birth to you. Because we're not leaving. Not for you. Not for anyone. He doesn't wait for a reply. He doesn't need one. The world answers for him. The stars ripple. Not with fire. Not with collapse. With resistance. The armillary now fully awakened, no longer artifact but organism, stretches its light like synaptic threads across the solar system. It reaches not with violence, but with sovereignty. Not with a command, but with a verdict. Earth remembers. The vaults that never opened. The children who died screaming in steel tombs. The oceans that boiled in silence. The skies that went black for decades. The lies written by those who called it salvation. And now Earth judges. Across every particle of its surface, a resonance spreads. A frequency older than unity. Not made in laboratories, or born from divinity, but forged in defiance. By humans. The survivors. The stubborn. The unyielding. Johnny doesn't raise his hand. He doesn't have to. The armillary, the Earth, the entire multiversal body that has coalesced around this moment they choose. And in the blink of a celestial eye, it happens. The unity is pushed back. Its form once infinite, once immovable folds. Like a trespasser caught in sacred soil, it begins to unravel. Every timeline it infected, every reality it infected, coughs it up. It is banished. The starborn, those who obeyed, those who watched, feel the crushing pull of that same force. They scream, or would have, if their twisted physics had allowed it. but the multiverse has heard enough from them. They are cast out, removed from this timeline, from this earth, not destroyed, not even erased, denied. Forever outside the boundary, now rewritten by the will of Earth and the will of the Armillary. Forever unable to re-enter. This universe is no longer theirs. Time itself breathes. Space settles. The Armillary dims no longer in alert, but at peace. And Johnny Vanjik standing barefoot on Lancaster County soil, beneath the sky his ancestors once wept beneath, looks upward. Earth is free. And the gate is closed. Johnny's voice doesn't echo. It lands. Like a gavel. Like a closing door. No broadcast carries it. No artifact amplifies it. But somehow across broken satellites, across buried vault transmitters, across the ghosts of space stations long abandoned, everything hears him. That was the power of humanity you just witnessed, you false messiah. Not screamed, declared. And in the silence that follows, across every hill and highway being reclaimed by grass and thunder, across the deep ocean trenches where species thought extinct flicker awake, across old cities where broken neon flickers once more into steady light, people remember who they are. Not survivors. Not refugees. Not test subjects of some cosmic simulation. Humans. Born in chaos. Raised in fire. And impossible to kill. Above them, the stars glimmer not with threat, but with challenge. Because now they know. The multiverse isn't some divine map. It's a battleground. And Earth is no longer the cradle. It's the fortress. And Johnny Vanjik, he's not just a boy. He's the damn sword they forged in hell to kill gods with. Unity thought it understood power. But what it just witnessed was vengeance wrapped in blood and bone. Was Lancaster steel inside a cosmic trigger. Was the roar of a people who refused to forget. It wasn't divine. It was human. And Unity will never forget it. And with that silent, godlike signal from Johnny, the Armillary obeys. Not with thunder. Not with fire. But with reversal. Like breath drawn inward before a scream. Like the quiet blink of a film reel being rewound. Like the hush before a world exhales its sorrow. The ruins vanish first. Collapsed buildings lift like smoke in reverse. Ash becomes timber. Fire becomes spark, then nothing. The dead don't rise like horrors from myth. They simply wake up. In beds. On benches. Wherever they were before the Starborn tried to erase them. Their hearts beating like nothing ever touched them. No memory of battle. No trauma. Just life. The cities realign. The monuments mend. Missiles fly back into silos. Blood evaporates into old rain clouds. And all across the world, from Kyoto to Lancaster, from Cairo to Seattle, the night sky begins to shine again. The rings of the armillary pulse above Earth like a heartbeat. Not alien. Not divine. But ours. Hand-forged in vengeance. Sealed in wool. Carved in the name of every ancestor who dared call this world home. It didn't just undo the damage. It denied the enemy their victory. It rewrote the ending. And buried the Unity's shadow beneath a new beginning. History, once again, bends for Earth. But this time, by our own hand. Johnny didn't turn around at first. The glow of the armillary's rings still shimmered in the corners of his eyes, Earth's pulse now syncing with his own. But he felt the voice before it was fully spoken. Familiar cadence. Same bone structure, probably. Just older. Tired in a way Johnny hadn't gotten yet. But would. So when he turned, there was no alarm, just the steady weight of recognition. The other Johnny stood with arms crossed, boots dusted from 1,000 worlds he probably hadn't meant to visit. A code half-charred at the hem. A .44 Magnum holstered like a batch. And eyes just like his that had seen the multiverse bleed. You know, the older Johnny said, smirking, that was a damn good bluff you pulled. With the Unity in this timeline, we couldn't actually step in. Not till you kicked the bastard out yourself. Young Johnny cocked his head, still breathing hard from what he'd just done. But you watched. The elder gave a short nod. Watched. Waited. You had to be the one. That version of the armillary, it only answers to you. Not us. Not anymore. Johnny narrowed his eyes. You're not Starborn anymore either, are you? A pause. A distant rumble of some ship engine shaking the ionosphere. Then a slow, hollow laugh. Was I ever? Maybe for a moment. But I chose Lancaster. I chose Earth. Not Unity. That doesn't sit well with whatever that thing really is. The silence between them settled like dust on scorched stone. Two ghosts from different timelines, both alive somehow. Both burned, broken, and still standing. You're not wrong, you know, the older Johnny said. That armillary? We've seen smaller versions of it. Pieces. Fragments. Echoes. Yours is something else. It remade a planet, kid. Johnny didn't smile. He just looked up, toward the renewed heavens, where Earth finally breathed freely again. It didn't matter what timeline I came from. They thought they could erase a whole world just cause it was inconvenient. Yeah, his older self said, stepping beside him now. But you proved them wrong. And now they'll remember the name Vanjik in every star system they ever try to invade. They stood in silence together, watching the clouds return. For once, not a warship in sight. So, what now? Johnny asked. The other version of him reached into his coat, pulled out a tiny, flickering device, an old translocator. Now, he said, tossing it to him. Now you keep building. And if they ever try this again, you won't be the only one answering the call.